Welcome back, everyone, to part two of episode two. Just so everyone knows, we're going to push the second break back to 9 to coincide with the internet cutting out at a regular schedule. um, so let's pick up there.
Yeah, well, we got to have the internet cut out. At least having it happen at a predictable time is helpful. Right?
Exactly.
So we'll take what we can get. Uh, so uh, uh, when we left off, you folks were on the balcony to the palace. You were lining up to check in with the Minister of Protocol and get yourselves properly placed into the order of progress, order of precedence for the royal ball. Is there anything you want to do, or you can just check in and move along, and we can get you in. But if there's anything you want to do at this point, you could certainly interact with your sister, or you could maintain anonymity if you want, Agorus.
So I'm definitely that's important. I'm trying to do that. So namely, I guess I don't know if I'm picturing like people are getting off and kind of like being pushed. Like we're kind of ahead of my sister in the first place, so
Okay.
we're going to be logged first or whatever. But the more important part is obviously I'm an heir. Many people would call me by Prince. But I think when Agorus goes up to be signed in or like take his precedence, he's going to introduce himself by his like official title or like his station in Agorus, which is the cynosure of the effulgent Heliodor. And the goal there is to be pushed down in the precedence. So like when I get introduced, not as many people are looking around. It's like being introduced as like a general of an army or like a higher station, but not necessarily like the prince.
Right.
Wait.
The Minister of Protocol is not going to have any of that.
Oh, that's okay.
So unless you do something here, and obviously we could do a flashback to accommodate this because you knew something like this was coming, right?
Sure.
But lacking that, her job is to put you at the right place. And she's going to recognize, you can't.
There's no place for badgers.
Yeah, you can't just be here as a badger, and you can't just be here as the cynosure. You have a noble rank, and so her job is to put you in the right place, and you would have to really work to get around that order, her placing you in the order of precedence, right up at the top.
I think this whole plan flashes through my head, and I realize as she's signing me in as the prince, that plan's probably better because then they're not announcing that the captain of the demon hunters is here.
There's that. Yeah. So you're actually going to.
Yeah, I think I was trying to do something, but like reverse. Like I need to downplay that I'm not the demon hunter captain dude.
All right. So you are going. So you have multiple titles that you're entitled to. You can probably convince her to erase that one because that's not very significant. She would be completely opposed to your erasing being the prince of Agorus.
Yeah. Okay, this plan's working out the way she forced me to. That's much better. Right, so we go in as prince and we drop the demon hunter part.
Okay. I think you can arrange to do that. But I'm going to ask you to make a roll just to kind of chat her up and make sure that she doesn't. She has the list of every title everybody has that she knows of. So her tendency would be to include that kind of down on the list, but something that you would get announced as. So you could have a chat with her about not having that on the list because you don't think that's an important thing, or that you're maybe about to resign as sinister or something like that.
Yeah.
That would be
I think I'll.
a control's role. There's nothing terrible that's going to happen there, but
Yeah. That's fine. What are we? Where are we at? This is. I guess that looks like persuade is probably a.
yeah, I think persuade is probably the thing to do. You could make an argument for something else, but
Um. Actually, I think I'll try. Maybe I'll like. I assume people have a breadth of space. Like people aren't like super on top of each other, and there's probably enough noise going around in the area that it's not like.
yeah.
We're far enough that like you can have a conversation that's kind of low key. Other
Yeah,
people
you
aren't
can
just
have
like going to hear everything.
a conversation. She has a couple of assistants who are right there taking,
Sure.
she's telling them what notes to take.
Sure.
But there's the line is relatively sedate and spread out. There are servants coming around with refreshments and things like that for people, and they're chatting with each other. So they're not right crowding you.
Sure. I think I would like to, rather than persuade, I'd like to inform her, I guess. So Agorus would just say, I understand that your duty is to list off the proper titles for everybody to give them their rightful um, like duty at the ball so that everybody
You're right
understands their prominence.
Yes.
Um, However, in this instance, I believe that it would be best to leave off my secondary title, my job outside of the palace, because for reasons that I won't go into fully, um, there may be complications to an ongoing investigation that we are conducting. Um, I'm sure that you understand. Sometimes there are delicate matters in the court, and certainly when it involves the security of our lovely Vergence, it is of the utmost importance that you keep this matter withheld for the ball. I'd like to be trying to use command with her.
Okay. I'll take that. So you're commanding her clearly to leave this off. Let's make a roll to see how that comes across. You could push yourself or make a devil's bargain if you want to, or just make a straight roll.
I'll do the push.
Okay.
Just mark 2 stress.
Yep.
And I think it's along the lines, my costume conceals, like I mentioned previously, but obviously she understands, she knows from the invitation and everything, she knows who I am. And one of the striking features about Agorus is also his eyes, not necessarily in the heterochromia like my sister, but I have like he has like a steely kind of stare that he usually can get people to like pay attention or respond
So he's
to.
using nice, quiet words, but his stare is one of command.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that'll be 3 dice then?
Yes. Controlled standard.
That was a 5.
Okay.
Oop. Yeah, that's a 5.
Yep. 5 for a partial?
5 for a partial. So let's say that it's only good that's a minor consequence since it was controlled. Let's say that she's going to say, "Of course, Your Highness, we can accommodate your needs," but you see her pull aside and kind of whisper to her assistant, and then gestures for you to please continue into the hall.
Okay.
All right.
We'll keep going then.
Okay. Let's see. The rest of you would be, in line presenting yourselves, unless you decide to do something else. Let's see. Valriaut, you would be recognized as noble of Agorus, so you have a clear, obvious place, certainly lower in the precedence than Agorus, but you're there and recognized, and you just kind of go right there on your into the book. The other two of you from the Serpent and the Maelstrom, she actually has a couple of assistants, one of whom is from the Serpent and one is whom is from the Maelstrom, who are expert in the nobility of those places as consultants to her. So when you approach, she asks your name, your heritage. The person steps forward and introduces themselves and asks questions about where you belong. There's a little conversation about where you belong in hierarchies of foreign people. And then they step back and put you, unless you want to argue about this, they kind of determine a place where you belong. You say your parentage and your heritage, and you go right there in the order of precedence. And that goes smoothly unless you want to do something funky in there.
I think that Ananke is going to fight for a better spot, just purely to be a thorn in their sides.
Okay.
So she's just going to look at the list, just like whoever this, and she'll just start rattling off names and positions. Keeper of the Seventh Sun, irrelevant. I should be above them clearly. She's being really loud to make sure that everybody sees this, because who in their right mind would draw that much attention to themselves and then rob the menagerie?
Right. So you're making a fuss of this, and the Minister of Protocol and her consultant are having a discussion, making it clear that your mother is actually not of the Serpent, and so has no standing within the Serpent to provide you with additional levels of protocol. But your father is, has significant status. They go back and forth about this. How much of what are you trying to achieve here?
I'm trying to make sure that everyone in the general vicinity knows who I am and that I'm present. Okay. And I think that before it gets to a head, she'll kind of go, "Oh, well, right you are," and then walk away.
All right. So she's not trying to win. She's just trying to make a fuss. Okay.
Absolutely. Just making sure that everybody knows she's...
Yep. So people hear your name. They hear your status. They hear that you're kind of annoying. And I don't think I'm going to need a role for you to establish that, since you're not really trying to overcome anybody. And I don't think that it's going to be difficult for you to achieve your goal. So we can just say that you did that and made some noise. And you see people kind of looking over, some people who are at the other end of the balcony who would normally not even be paying attention to you. This is just some normal bureaucratic stuff going on. And they're kind of looking over at you and then looking at each other and go, who's that? Right. So you've made a bit of a scene. I don't think you need a role to make a scene.
Awesome.
So you have achieved that goal. Hrolf, are you making any kind of a fuss, or are you just kind of establishing your bona fides and moving along?
I feel like I have to now. So I think I'm going to be significantly more casual about it.
Okay.
And be like, you can put me wherever, maybe behind, and then I point to like one of the highest nobles' names, just like somewhere right there. That sounds good.
No, there's a very precise process for this, my lord. And she consults with her person from the Maelstrom, who asks you some questions about your heritage. You are the son of the Dominus of the Storm Knights. That certainly confers to you a level of precedence. and they consult and they identify the place that you belong in the book, unless you want to fight over that.
Not strongly.
Okay, all right. So there's a little discussion, and then you move on. Behind you, some other noble makes a bit of a scene similar to what Ananke did. So it's not actually too weird to be having these kind of little fights here about precedence. So you made Ananke, you made a scene, but it wasn't. You felt like you were making a big deal out of things and being a jerk, but then other people do the same thing. So it doesn't stand out that much unless you wanted to really go over the top with it.
Yeah, no, I think she's unfamiliar with this place. So when she sees that other people are behaving much the same way, she kind of looks over at our, like, your people are very strange.
Do the clans not get together?
Yeah, you can certainly agree or disagree. But rank is important here, and precedence is important here. Anyway, you pass through the entryway into the palace. There's an anteroom which is very large, leading into a much larger main ballroom. The structure of this place, just to lay it out, there's a main ballroom and 2 secondary ballrooms. Leading out from those are obviously entrances to servant places, kitchens, and other places like that. There are also other rooms that are available to you. Some of them have been marked off as private, and people with pull have arranged for private periods of time here. Maybe meetings, maybe games of cards with that are invitation only. Other kinds of things that are very private. Other things that might be happening in those rooms might be open to the public. Somebody might have arranged for a display of some famous artist's new paintings, or for a play to be performed, or some other event to happen. You can certainly make up things to fit into these kinds of things, but I just wanted to give you the general summary of what this environment is like. As we had established before the game, because you folks have, we did a sort of a round of people identifying facts about how things play out with the ball. The main ballroom is set up as so that it can be adjusted into different levels in different parts of the ballroom. And using steam and pneumatic pressure, these can be dynamically raised and lowered and moved around in various ways. And the reason for that is that when there are certain dances that are designed for this. In specific, they're designed for members of the blood to participate in these dances, because everybody who's of the blood is extraordinarily graceful and acrobatic. And so some dances are not like a waltz. They are much crazier than that and involve jumping from platform to platform and doing other nutso things, which normal members of these bloodlines are able to do. And people who are not members of those bloodlines may challenge themselves to attempt. So there are people who might be doing things on these dance floors that are difficult for them, but relatively easy for you. If you participate in these dances, you could also try extra acrobatic things to try to push in various ways, if you wish. But these are kind of the things that might be happening a bit later. Tonight is a relatively informal night. So it is the night that it is normal for people to go more costumed and masked and more anonymous. Up above you, there is a closed platform or balcony that is sort of the official viewing spot for the Queen. So she may or may not be up there. She can choose to kind of sit up there and view the ball if she wishes, or she might be totally blowing you off and not paying any attention. But it is traditional for toasts to be done up to that balcony. Okay. Are you arriving early, pretty much on time, fashionably late? I should have established that earlier.
Um,
I'm gonna yield to Agorus on this. He knows this place, better than any of us. Like I'm from the province of Agorus, but what's in fashion? Is it fashionable to be late?
Um, I think at least for me, or at least Agorus, it's not as much a concern tonight, at the very least. I think I would probably be most interested in getting there earlier. Maybe for Valriaut's concerns, spotting Morgaine when she gets there probably helps. And I think from my perspective, seeing who's arriving to the ball and maybe if anybody's meeting up with people unexpectedly or if there are any sort of gatherings that are happening that might hint towards something that I would be interested in, making sure people aren't doing anything shady. I mean, these secret places are going on, and making sure I'm not seeing people walk in with known tendencies towards the occult or something like that.
Or see, a bunch of demons just walk by.
Yeah, that's not. They're always late, so.
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
what makes them evil.
So you've gotten there a bit early. The halls are relatively empty. These are big honking rooms with big swept curving ceilings with sort of Baroque artwork running up and down the ceilings. So if you kind of think, these people have access to the best art and the best architects of thousands of worlds. So you could imagine that they could just bring in Michelangelo to fresco their ceiling, right? Or any, the most brilliant artwork that you can imagine is sort of mundane here. It's just normal. It's all over the place. But it's great stuff to look at and beautiful. This is an incredibly beautiful place in its the way it's built. There is no electricity here, but there is light. There are glow bulbs that contain enough power to be able to, when they're activated, create sort of a warm light, and they're just kind of running up and down through here. You've gotten here early, so it's not nighttime. There is no sun that goes over in the sky, but there is night in that that's established in that there's a series of mirrors that runs from the orb that lights up all of these caverns. And a little bit later on, right now those mirrors have, they're sort of a quarter closed, and they will be, conveniently closed a bit later in the evening to provide nighttime and to darken things for the fireworks that are going to be happening outside the palace a little bit later on. Are you staying together or are you spreading out?
I'm probably sticking with Ananke. I don't know about everyone else.
As the
Yeah, we have things to
foreigner.
Yeah, as the foreigners and schemers. I don't know.
Okay.
Thieves.
Yeah, I was gonna say I probably stick with Valriaut, like trying to watch the entrance or like watching people come.
Okay. Something to remind you in terms of assets that you have is that you do have those transfer stones.
Sure.
You can flash back to having attuned them to someone or something in the past if you wish. That's just fine. You could each have a connection to one of the others if you wish to have that, or you can use them for something else. But just to remind you that you have the ability to do that. You could contact each other across the palace using these things. And periodically you'll see one of the nobles pull out a transfer stone and be doing something with it themselves. So there are other people using these. These are rare and valuable objects, but the nobles of this place do have them, and some of them, you'll see some of them make use of them. And even occasionally you might see someone step through, they'll disappear and go through to someone else, or someone will appear, someone will go through to the person they're talking to.
Just out of curiosity, is there anything preventing people from using those to like get in and out of the palace, like with this whole, or is it only common courtesy and like respecting protocol
Yeah,
to
that's
get
a good
put in the
question.
book?
So one thing to keep in mind is that stones do have a certain amount. They have a limited number of uses, and making connections in a Vergence uses up more of their power than making connections out in the Umbra. So they're by using stones here, they are sort of, in some ways, engaging in conspicuous consumption for other people to see them doing. I'm rich, so I can afford to use up one of these stones here. And so you imagine some people are doing that just to show off that they have that capacity. Using stones here is more likely to require an action roll with a potential consequence of using up the capacity of that stone. But in addition, there are places that are blocked, that you can block an area from passage by a stone, and then getting through that can be very, very difficult. But within these ballrooms areas, there's no particular blockage.
So Valriaut, you were good with just scoping it out, like waiting, trying to watch for Morgaine?
Yeah, I think right now that Valriaut is sort of going to be working the room. He's been away for a while, and he's got stories, and it's been a while since he's interacted with a lot of these people. And I think he's trying to, if not make up for lost time, at least look like he is. So he's making his way through the room, and he's socializing as he goes.
Yep.
But always on the lookout for Morgaine.
Sure, there are plenty of people for you to catch up with. Assuming you're allowing your costume to allow you to be recognized easily. How about we? At this point, Agorus, you had described your costume in some detail. I think it would be kind of cool for each of the others to describe what your costume looks like at this point.
Sure.
So Ananke, I think we touched on it last week. So Ananke came dressed as Dilophosaurus, but the one specifically from Jurassic Park, because that's not what they really look like. So she has a huge frill, and maybe a small mask, and she has the snake-like dress. I think that her mask is pretty minimal, and she's probably recognizable if anybody actually would recognize her. But she is still very, very heavily ornamented. So she is the most, like, it looks like the Dilophosaurus ran through a jewelry store. So that's what she's doing.
So you have a bunch of rings hanging from your frill and lots of other stuff. Okay, that is cool. If we had artist fans, it would be interesting to see what the fan art looked like. Right?
Yes.
Sure. Who else wants to describe how they're dressed?
So I have a bear mask, and make as much use as possible of just looking gruff to need as little costume as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have like a big fur cloak that kind of matches.
All right, but you're not. This is not the most stylish attempt at a costume. You have a costume that will serve, but is not going to super impress anybody with the perfection of its stylishness.
Exactly. I mean, with the situation I grew up in, I didn't ever have a huge emphasis on style.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's the the masquerade equivalent of going with a T-shirt that says costume.
Yeah, and a mask.
Maybe a little better than that.
A little bit of that.
Okay, fair enough.
Right.
We outfitted him. It's just that he like only picked up like 3 of the things that the outfitter put out. Like, all right, wear all of this, and he's like, oh, this, just put that on.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
good.
Exactly.
I'm not wearing the clown clothes. You can't make me.
Yeah, I'm not. No way. Okay.
No bare hands.
It looks pretty cool. I don't know.
I slay me. Okay, Valriaut is he's going as an owl, but he's going as an owl with ram's horns. I think it's a domino mask, so it's got like the beak that goes over the nose and just around the eyes, and it's done with a feather motif. He's wearing it looks like a three-piece suit from our world, but it's done in beige, and it's got frogging and filigree and things like that that are picked out in that feather pattern. And he's wearing kind of a one-shoulder half cloak that is just nothing but a variety of snow and scintillating feathers. So.
Neat, right? And of course, remember that.
And of course,
again, people here can access all kinds of exotic materials and tailors and the like. So you can be as super crazy fancy dressed as you want to be, and that is totally cool. So awesome. All right, so so Valriaut, you're making your way out through the hall, not trying to pretend to be someone else, connecting with people, interacting with them. There is a tendency for people to pretend to be masked and anonymous, but to make sure they recognize each other and are seen. So it's not too hard to play that game.
Certainly, and I think Valriaut is certainly introducing himself as the Great Horned Owl, and I think that he's very, very circumspect in his terms of address. He'll address everybody by their animal costume and everything. And it's been too long, and I've been on the wing for so long, and etc. Anybody who's known to him and that he knows certainly comes across as, yes, I am Valriaut, and I know that you are you, but right now I am the Great Horned Owl.
Okay.
And I think that he's saving it up for the dramatic reveal later when Morgaine comes around, where he can tear off the mask and be like, "It was me the whole time."
Yeah. All right, and Hrolf and Ananke are kind of staying together as the slightly uncomfortable foreigners in this place.
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
I vote we find the first unassuming looking servant and demand a tour of the grounds. We're looking for statues and dragons, and we won't say it that way, but that's what we're doing.
Okay.
Do you have anything we can steal?
How about silverware? Silverware. Yep. And of course, among these nobles, everybody is as infinitely rich as they want to be. So there isn't a tendency, there's a tendency to impress each other with cool and unique things, but not with just bling, right? Because anybody can get as much bling as they want. So there are other ways to engage in status competitions among these folks. So as you're doing that, the hall is starting to fill up with more people. You are looking around trying to find a servant who could do that. It cost a couple people who just kind of duck and say, "I'm just here to serve champagne," right? So they don't know how to help you with that, because that's not what they're here for, right? Here, you want some canapes? And so you freak out a couple of minor servants, and you could take offense at that or just let it go by. But they don't appear to be trying to offend you. They're just trying to get their jobs done. But after you do that a couple of times, one of them points over to somebody who looks more like a functionary, who is kind of a major domo, who is ordering servants around and telling people where to go. So you can head over toward that person and make a request. As Ananke heads off to do that, Hrolf, somebody is standing next to you and says to you, "Hello, my good friend." And you turn and look at this person, and you do not recognize them from their look. They are dressed in the costume. There was once a Vergence that was destroyed. There was there epic poems and stories told about a place called Ilium that is no more. And they had a giant crystal that was the center of their power, and they rode giant lizards that had crystals embedded in their bodies. So not dinosaur things, but sort of dinosaur-ish. And so he has an Ilian reptile costume with crystals sticking out. But you can see his face, and you don't recognize his face. But you recognize the tone, and you believe that it is a demon that you have had dealings with in the past, named Tyron.
So I bow and say,
and he bows back at an exactly equal bow.
okay. I say, greetings, friend. Do you believe you have me at a disadvantage?
I do not believe so. I believe that you know me as well as I know you, sir.
That may be. What brings you to this fine event?
There are many dealings in which I have interest here. There are events happening among my clanmates. There are events happening among other clans with whom I sometimes have dealings. There are events happening among you humans that are possibly of interest. There's much to observe and a few things to perhaps dip a toe in or stick a finger into, hoping not to lose it.
I would laugh at this and say, well, I think we are here for similar reasons then.
Well, if there is a service that I can do for you, then ask, and I may or may not be able to provide it to you. But if I can, and it is not of too great an inconvenience to my interests, then I will do you a service.
I would expect nothing more, and I'm grateful for your offer of definite assistance. And I bow again and say, I hope to meet you again during this wondrous ball. And if you have any need of anything as well, you know how to find me.
I do, and I may well take you up on that. And he does a flourish and a bow and makes a leg and wanders off and says hello to some noblewoman.
Valriaut, we're watching the wrong place.
See, I don't get attacked when demons show up.
At least not that demon.
Well, yes.
Just wait,
So
we'll see.
Ananke, you have approached this functionary. You have requested a tour of the more private parts of the palace. Tell me if I'm wrong about that.
No, that sounds about right. I mean, I think that it seems innocent enough to ask about the menagerie and maybe the statue, the Hall of Statues or something. We'd make up some elaborate story of how we've heard of how great they are, and we just, we came all this way.
Yes, madam. I apologize. I am unfamiliar with the titles of the place from which you come. I presume that you are of the Serpent, and a very fascinating place. I'm sure that is. But yes, tomorrow evening at just past midnight, there shall be a public tour of the menagerie, which any guest is welcome to participate in. There are a few private tours of the menagerie which have been arranged, which I do not have the power to add your name to any such tour, but you may seek out perhaps the Minister of Protocol to have your name placed on such a thing, or perhaps even a wait list if someone were to not show. As to a hall of statues, I believe I'm I heard of an obscure place of. Were those the speaking statues you're referring to?
She kind of looks over at the bear. Has he caught back up?
You see that Hrolf has been chatting with some person dressed as an alien lizard beast, and that he is, had a brief conversation with that person and is now heading over toward you.
Yeah, she'll fill the silence. I think at this point she's like double fisting like 4 glasses of champagne because every time we said we can't help you, here's some champagne. She was like, oh, okay. I love champagne. But yeah, so she'll just start filling in the void and like, yes, that sounds correct.
Well, I will have to ask on your behalf. I believe I've heard of such a thing. You do not understand that the palace is not just these rooms here that you can see available to for this purpose, but it extends for great distances deep within the caverns, and there are many old places that are not often visited. But I believe that I have heard tell of a hall of statues that one can have discussions with, but I am not sure of where that might be.
Do you know who we could talk to?
Give me a moment. May I ask your name, my lady?
I think that she's trying to keep in the spirit of the game, so she gives her name as the Madame de Lophosaurus.
Okay, Madame de Lophosaurus. I will make an inquiry on your behalf. There is a sage who works in the library who knows as much as anyone about the back halls of the palace and the inner catacombs of the palace. And if anyone knows where such a thing might be, that would be the person. So let me try to arrange for that person to make contact with you perhaps a bit later this evening. Would that be acceptable to you?
Perfect. I'll be around.
Very good, Madame. Enjoy the ball.
Thank you. We'll go wander off and try to find the aforementioned person who does the putting people on lists to see the rest of the palace.
Okay.
They're the same person with the book.
Yeah, or one of their assistants, really, because the Minister of Protocol is busy establishing that. But if you approach sort of that grouping, you can find somebody who can put you certainly on the list for a tour of the menagerie tomorrow evening, just after midnight, and you're placed on the list and given a place to arrive. You are told to show up somewhat early because being at the back of the line can be somewhat disappointing.
I would probably put my name on the list and say
Okay.
my name +1 so that your name doesn't have to be on the suspect list.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right. So let's say some time passes. The hall fills up. There are sort of back banquet halls that are filled with food of various kinds. So any of you could go back and eat. These main areas have servants wandering around with smaller dishes and drinks. There are also open bars in those back halls to go to if you want to get really interesting with all sorts of drinks from all sorts of worlds. Meanwhile, there are some proclamations read, and then there's an orchestra in this ballroom. There are 2 sub ballrooms with other orchestras, and dancing begins. This ballroom is filled with sort of they're not doing the changing the height at this point. So it's just a big flat open space, and they are doing something waltz-like here. You can hear coming from the other ballrooms sort of different styles of music. One of them is a much higher tempo dance, and then the other ballroom is a sort of you can see that they're not using it as a ballroom at the moment. They are using it for a play. So some time passes. Periodically, a couple of times, some noble person calls loudly for between dances for everything to stop. Everyone charges their glasses and toasts Her Majesty Queen Inhadron of Agorus. One time you see someone looking at you like, should we toast you, Agorus? But you manage to give them the don't be doing that now look, and they just shut up and wander off. So you're happy about that, I assume. Fairly, quite late, you spot a group of Storm Knights coming in. They are probably not a whole lot, most of them are probably not a whole lot more fashionable than Hrolf is. They are doing well enough to pass, but not well enough to impress anyone.
No fluffy tails.
Yeah, no super fluffy tails. Selim, you note, has made more of an effort and is dressed in a more fashionable costume than most of the Storm Knights, who have just made, done well enough. They have an animal costume thing on, but it's not the full elaborate costume that some of the nobles here are wearing.
Yeah.
And
I think that Agorus had given Selim the tip to wear a tail, so.
Yeah. So
that was the point, yeah.
Yeah. But you see at his side, surrounded by a couple of other Storm Knights, you see Morgaine, Dominus of the Storm Knights. She is a tall and somewhat broad and athletic woman. She has long hair that's braided back, and she's she has a confident walk, and she's walking in, and a couple of diplomats from Agorus recognize her and come over and start talking to her.
Yeah, I think Valriaut and I, myself, having relatively enhanced senses, my artifact gives me enhanced senses. Yeah. So it's like normal things I probably pick up a lot more keenly. Sure. I think Valriaut is like right there though, even with me usually picking up on stuff a bit more quickly as she walks in. And I kind of pause for a second, like looking over to him, and I'm like, I don't know that I've really heard this part of your plan, but what exactly you're not planning to test metal against her, are you?
I think that at this point, Valriaut has been imbibing. He's got a half-drained flute of champagne in his hand, and he says, Agorus, how long have we known each other?
I mean, do we count the distance apart?
It is a long time, is it not?
Yes.
Would it be fair to say that you trust that I have a plan?
I have seen you do things that have sounded wilder. I just wish for your safety.
I thank you, my brother. But I think that now it is time that I reveal an unwelcome truth to you. I am always only just making this up. I'm going to go find Ananke. I'm going to take her to the ballroom. I'm going to contrive a way to bump into Morgaine.
Okay.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
All right. So the two of you are kind of in on this plan together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we group action a contrive?
Yeah.
We can drive. Okay.
We're contriving to run into a very, very large woman who is rather intimidating, and I am not fighting her.
Probably going to pop me like a cheap water balloon, but here goes nothing.
You're fighting her.
Yeah, she's not gigantic or anything. She's just imposing, and ultimately, she kind of comes across as bigger than she physically is. If you were to just measure her out, she is an imposing presence.
Tailors are like, I don't know why she says they're so large.
Yep. So in this game, there are group actions, but they work slightly differently than in regular Blades. So let me just quickly explain that so you can decide what you want to do. So you say how the group is working together, and then the leader of that group rolls dice equal to the highest action among the people doing that thing. So only one person makes the roll. So it's not a whole bunch of people rolling. And then depending on how that roll turns out, there could be a stress cost for you, or if you roll very badly, for the other people who are doing that group action.
You still on board for this?
Do you have more contrive than me?
I have one contrive. You have one contrive.
Well, we have the same contrive, so there's no benefit.
Yeah.
So you contrive,
Okay.
and I'll go for the ride.
Fair enough.
Okay. I mean, you can certainly be there, but yeah, if both of you have the same rating, there's no particular mechanical benefit in doing that as a group action.
Okay. I think
You could do a setup if you would prefer to do it that way. And that works the same as in regular Blades.
I'm not sure that I see. You see a setup here where we're going together, right?
I think really that the only benefit I have to having you directly at my hip is that you'll be there to pull my butt out of the fire if I need it.
Okay.
So that being said, I think that it makes it look a little bit more innocent. So what I have planned next might come off just a little bit more, with just a little bit more piquance if you're there with me.
Okay. So you haven't primed Ananke on exactly how this is supposed to play out. She's just following your lead.
Right. As long as
you
you're
flash back to this whole thing.
I promise you won't get hurt.
Right.
Yeah, I think that as it's going along, we have that scene where the band strikes up. It's a new song, and I stride over to Ananke and I kind of give the courtly formal bow, and I'm like, now we do not know each other well, and that is my shame, lady. Would you favor me with a dance?
There's no world in which Ananke is not suspicious of everything about to happen. So yeah.
All right. I kind of think this is an engagement role.
Okay, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
See
So that works pretty much the same as in regular Blades. There's a list on your play sheet. The list of types of plans is slightly different. This sounds like a social. And I would say that obviously Morgaine is the connection.
Mm-hmm.
I would call this an assault.
I was thinking maybe a push.
It's a reverse assault.
Yeah.
Maybe it's an ambush, yeah.
A retreat. And then, so this would be an engagement roll. On this game, it's a little bit more abstract than Blade's engagement. If you've had time to plan or prepare, I'm going to say this is 2 dice, unless you want to kind of convince me that you have other advantages.
No, I think at this point, everybody on the Alliance knows that I plan to challenge Morgaine to a duel. They're not quite sure how to go down. I think Agorus is perfectly valid points. You're not about to cross swords with the Dominus of the Storm Knights, are you?
Yeah.
Well, not by choice, right? And I think that Ananke is my unwitting, well, at least until about halfway through the dances, we are slowly angling over toward Morgaine, and I'm like, okay.
You're a terrible dancer. We're supposed to be over there.
Now I need you to play along with this, okay? Just trust that I know what I'm doing, and make sure that nobody comes at my back, will you?
All right. So I'm going to say this is a 2 dice for an engagement roll. This is one of the few times that the GM actually makes a roll in this game normally, right? So I'm going to roll that. And you get a partial, you get a 5. So that is, on an engagement roll, a mixed result. So you are in a risky position here for the rolls that you're beginning to make, and then obviously that will evolve. So I'm going to say that what happens as you walk up and say this to Morgaine is that she recognizes your voice and recognizes your stature. She's an experienced battle commander. She knows you from a long time ago, and I'm going to say that because the position is risky, she's going to recognize you, unless you want to do something to counter that. But it doesn't seem like you've kind of taken the extra precautions to avoid that. But if you wanted to flash back to something else, we could certainly talk about that.
I think it kind of serves my intention here for her to know that it's me before the grand reveal, right? So I think that when we find the engagement fully joined, it's one of these things where I've leaned into Ananke and it's like, now pretend that I have said something with you.
And now she totally just goes,
Okay.
And I think thank you. I think that in the midst of kind of this peal of laughter, he leans back and he's just a little too close to Morgaine for comfort. And he's like in danger of maybe brushing against her, which you just don't do. And he like corrects himself just at the last moment, and he turns to offer an apology, and he draws up short. And there's oh, why the orb and the light of our fathers? More Dominus? Could it possibly be?
And there are a couple of other Storm Knights right there. They look at her a bit amused that someone would not recognize Morgaine. And she says, Valriaut? Huh. It has been some time.
Lady, it is my pleasure and such a gratification to have you remember one such as I.
Oh, no, I remember you from when you were a boy. I certainly hope you've made something of yourself.
Well, I am certainly something. Whether I made it or I was forged by good tutelage, I cannot say for certain. Please, let me introduce you to a friend of mine. This is Ananke.
She'll make her best pass at what she thinks the proper customs are here in Agorus.
What does that look
Well,
probably really ridiculous.
Okay, so Morgaine is not from here either. She's Hrolf's mother, which I'm sure you're clear on just from discussion leading up to all of this. So she's not super clear on exactly what the perfect protocol is either. Any kind of
That's even better.
and you do will be acceptable to her.
Fantastic. She'll be in on the joke because now she'll be doing a goofy bow to everybody from this place too.
All right. So Morgaine does not do a bow. She does a small nod forward towards you and says, "It is a pleasure to meet you, my lady."
The pleasure is mine, but you two seem to have some business here. And she just kind of does that slow fade.
Great. I should have taken Hrolf for a dance.
She'll be an eye shot, keeping an eye on the situation, but
does Ananke take her previous partner?
Well, they had not started to dance yet, so this is Morgaine had been making her way into the hall.
Okay.
So she has not begun a dance yet.
So, what is Morgaine's costume? What is she putting on for this particular ball?
Sure. So she is dressed in a, obviously people can be dressed in things from 100 different worlds. So it's not necessarily, if I say a particular earth animal, you could translate that into something similar to. But she is dressed in something similar to a sort of a white mink costume, only looking a bit more fierce than that.
Okay, yeah, I like that. Okay, so I think that we're about to do a little bit of repartee here, because we've got this thing. Ananke has just gone ahead and scooted off away from me, so I'm left to my own devices with the Dominus. Thank you. So I think.
But before you jump forward, we can certainly say that the other two members of the group are, you two are at the, sort of a ways away, but you're observing this from a distance and could take action as you're seeing Valriaut approach and engage with Morgaine.
I'm like hanging out with Hrolf, right? Like we're right next to each other.
Yeah, that's what
I think at this point I'm just looking over him and like, would your mom actually like murder somebody here? Like she's not gonna do that, right?
Probably not without a really good reason.
Your servants
stand by for that.
Your servants know how to clean up blood, right?
Yeah. She probably has reason to avoid diplomatic incidents under the circumstances. But anyway,
I appreciate the vote of confidence.
Any active combat happening quite yet. So this is something the two of you are observing, and you could, any of the three of you could take some kind of action as you're watching this going on if you want. Otherwise, so Valriaut, you've introduced yourself. She's sort of giving you a slight negative sort of, treating you as the boy you were rather than the man you are.
Yeah, and it rankles a little bit.
Engagement role you had talked about asking her to dance. Is that still your plan?
It is actually. I'm
Okay.
about to try and persuade her to let's leave aside who we were back then. Let us begin anew. You as this charming mink creature and myself as Master Owl. Let us have a dance. Let us put aside our grievances for the moment.
I'm going to, without a roll, I'm going to say that she's going to agree to that. She seems a bit amused at your antics and is wondering where you're going with this. Whether it's some sort of 100-year-old crush that you're expressing here, or something else.
Okay. If she's willing to take my hand and let me lead her out, will she let me lead or?
She will let you lead.
Okay. I had to ask.
But it's very clear that she is letting you lead.
Yeah, no, absolutely, of course. Here I am, only 135 years old, and barely a stripling, right? And we're gonna go for the first round.
You're not a baby by the in this age range. You're certainly well within your by our standards as mundane, pathetic humans, you'd be something like 29-ish, right? So you're not a baby, but you are still at the young end of things.
I think there's a chance they disconnected.
Yep, possibly a little bit early.
Yep. All right, well, we can hop straight into a break. Might as well.
Excellent timing.
Good timing. So we'll be back in 5 or so minutes, hopefully with 2 more players.
That would be good. Otherwise, we'll play it out with the two of you.
That would be hilarious. We just
So anyways.
Yeah, exactly. All right. See everyone in a couple minutes.
Okay.